What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So there's of course been a lot of discussion around Nintendo's next generation device, as well as like how they're going to approach it and all of this, but there are still a lot of questions as to how Nintendo is going to approach the next couple of years for the current Switch, especially with that cross-gen period. Well, in a recent interview, these were questions posed to Nintendo, and some of the responses seemed to confuse a lot of people online, and I figured we would go over those answers here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a new report that has shed more light into a situation forming within Sony's more premier studio that not really showing good news necessarily for Last of Us fans. And we'll also be talking about a last-second delay for a pretty big trilogy, I would say, coming to the Switch that has now raised more concerns around one particular part of that collection. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're gonna start today with Xbox Game Pass games for the month of October. Of course, this is the month for Forza Motorsport to come out. However, we have some other fun updates in here, which we'll take a look over on news.xbox.com. The card at the top showing the different games. And if you already forgot, Gotham Knights, the Lamplighters League, those are already available in the service, so you can check them out if you're interested in either of those. But October 4th, so today, Warhammer 40k Darktide is available on cloud and Xbox Series X and S. This is already in PC Game Pass. However, there was some issues, I think, with the console version, but I guess they got it worked out, and it's just dropping today. So good news there for console gamers who are waiting for it. Then, of course, moving to October 10th, we have Forza Motorsport Cloud, PC, and Xbox Series X and S. Of course, you could have already bought into this earlier. October 5th is when it releases if you want to buy like the special edition or what have you. Moving up to October 12th, there's From Space, that's cloud, console, and PC. October 17th, Like a Dragon Ishin, cloud, console, and PC. Still really fun to see these Like a Dragon games going into Game Pass. Definitely something like a Dragon Ishin is a very unique experience, and yeah, I'd recommend checking it out there. And this is under the URL Wave 1, so of course expect more game announcements as we head through October, as this basically just covers the first half of the month, and certainly a strong start to October. Also, we did get a pretty exciting announcement for PC gamers who basically just prefer Steam and don't want to touch the Epic Game Store, as Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 is out now. And like you see some of the Steam page here, this is an awesome game. I mean, technically a collection of two different Pro Skater games from back in the day, but I think the last Tony Hawk game that Steam got, if I'm not mistaken, was that Pro Skater HD. I think Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 was only ever on consoles, so yeah, significantly better than that one. I mean, the game is really fun, and of course, it being on Steam means that if you have a Steam Deck and you're someone who didn't want to side load Windows or whatever else there, you just want to stick to the Steam OS, this will be your first shot at it. I did get a code for this from Activision, and I think I will check it out on the Steam Deck to see how performance is, and talk a bit about that on one of the podcasts coming up. Oh, and of course, as Microsoft likes to do, we did get a new controller announced for the Xbox Series systems, which you can see it here. And this is the Gold Shadow Special Edition. And I mean, I think it looks pretty cool with kind of the gold fading to black. And they say it's paying homage to Xbox One's fan favorite Shadow Series designs. So kind of the gold to black metallic finish on the top of the case. Of course, the back still has basically the same matte black with kind of the grips around the edges. Again, no shortage of controllers on the Xbox Series platform. It is available today, though. It's now for pre-order at the price of $69.99. So check it out on Xbox.com or for your local retailer. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Shintaro Furukawa, of course, the president of Nintendo, and a recent interview with Nikkei where they discussed the future of Nintendo with their next generation device, as well as the current Switch, and even went a bit more into the development side of things and how Nintendo is kind of viewing a lot of these big-time acquisitions that are going on around them. Now, this was published by Nikkei, so it was in Japanese and all of this, but of course people have been able to translate it over with varying degrees of success, where they're using like DeepL or Google Translate. So we'll go through that, but just keep in mind some of this stuff might sound a little weird, or there might be some stuff lost in translation technically, but I think a lot of it is pretty straightforward, actually, and in fact, we kind of know about most of this stuff already, but let's take a look. This was one that was translated by Deep L, posted up over on Reset Era. And I just want to go through the questions because I think it is important to see what the interviewer is asking Furukawa. So they do ask, how will you apply the spirit of originality to the Switch's successor? And Furukawa hits them with the basic tried and true, we are constantly researching and developing hardware. But for the fiscal year ending March 2024, our focus is on expanding the Nintendo Switch business. It also says that they try to figure out how they can deliver something that customers really want. Well, I mean, I'd say we pretty much want a better version of the current Switch. I don't think Nintendo has to think too outside of the box for this one necessarily. I think they have the concept figured out. They just have to build on that hybrid model. But as they mentioned, for the current fiscal year ending March 2024, they're at least saying we're focusing on this current Switch. So maybe April or May they would announce the next system, or who knows, they can still technically focus on the current Switch, which is something that came up immediately after that. Can the Switch's life cycle be extended further? So Furukawa says we are still working on Nintendo Switch software for the fiscal year ending March 2025. And people, I think, saw this and said, hold on a minute, hold on. Is the next system not coming out until 2025? Well, technically what he's saying here, they're already doing. Okay, so we know Princess Peach Showtime, that's coming out March. And then we know that there's Luigi's Mansion HD, or 2 HD, and then also Paper Mario. Those are coming out after Princess Peach Showtime, which means those would be in that following fiscal year that would end March 2025. So he's not really breaking any new news or anything here. He's basically telling us that they will continue to support the Switch going into that fiscal year. And remember, we still have Metroid Prime 4 out there somewhere, and I kind of feel like that will launch for holiday 2024, maybe as a cross-gen title. So yes, they can still support the current Switch going into that fiscal year, as well as bring out a brand new system. Now, the last question here kind of gets into the development side of things, talking about why are you increasing the number of in-house developers? And for the most part, he spells it out here with the first sentence, game development is becoming more sophisticated. However, he does point out that they don't necessarily just want to run around and just build externally from Nintendo. They would rather allot their resources internally and kind of build up those development resources, as he mentions, that have a deep understanding of the creative DNA and the Nintendo brand. Now, he does say they do not reject the use of mergers and acquisitions, which they have obviously done that with something like Next Level Games, and they have also done some supplementary stuff with different, more supportive studios and companies, but they're not going out there buying, I don't know, Bungie or a publisher, obviously like Activision Blizzard. They seem to be very, very selective, and at times they'll just let a studio just dissolve and go away like Alpha Dream, as opposed to buying them and bringing them in-house. That's not to say they're not hiring different developers who end up leaving that studio once it dissolves, but they're not necessarily going to make big flashy headlines just acquiring them basically just because. So to me, this interview was pretty straightforward, nothing too groundbreaking here, and I think we all expect there to be a cross-gen period for the current Switch. So yeah, the next system I still expect to come out second half of 2024, and I do wonder how long Nintendo and maybe even third parties are going to support this current Switch, even with the more powerful, more desirable maybe system that's out on the market. And actually, I made that the poll question, so we'll revisit this topic later in the show. Next up, let's talk about Sony and Naughty Dog, as a recent report from Kotaku is, well, painting a picture that's not great necessarily for Last of Us fans, especially if you were excited for maybe Last of Us Factions 2 or whatever they were attempting to describe to us with this live service take on the game. But we can see this posted up by Kotaku, and there's quite a bit to this report. I will leave, of course, a link down below in the sources, but they do say departments ranging from art to production were impacted, but the majority of those laid off worked in quality assurance testing. The sources said at least 25 developers were part of the downsizing, full-time staff do not appear to have been part of the cuts. It does kind of make sense that it would be QA if they were essentially shelving their Last of Us Factions live service game, and they go a bit more in depth with that one, saying that one source has apparently said that it's basically on ice at this point, which means it's going to be sitting around for a while. I kind of have an idea as to maybe where they can put that I guess the build of the game. Again, we don't really know how far along it is, but something else that was noted here by Kotaku is that no severance is being offered for those currently laid off, and that impacted developers as well as remaining employees are being pressured to keep the news quiet, which is that's one way to go about it. Now, it tends to be what happens with contractors and stuff. One of the reasons they end up hiring many of them for things like QA, because they can basically do this, lay them off, get rid of them pretty quickly, and at times not do severance. And I mean, Epic Games, while they did lay off a bunch of people, the severance packages were like 6 months and they still had health insurance. There's a lot that Epic did kind of on the way out as like an exit strategy for them. In this case, just like, you guys are gone at the end of October. And it, of course, brings back into question what really went down with this whole situation, as it really seems to be completely linked to this Last of Us live service game that apparently Bungie did an internal review on and said, no, that's not going to work. It's going to go back in the oven. And instead of doing that, they put it on ice and are working on something else entirely. We do believe that there is a Last of Us Part 3 that's at least conceptualized, as it's been referenced that the writing and the plot and all those details are already figured out, but you can sit in pre-production for a game for a long time until it goes into full swing for like development and all of this. And it sounds like Naughty Dog is working on some other game, I guess a new intellectual property. I think The Last of Us Factions, this live service game, would be better to pare it back and make it a multiplayer mode for Last of Us Part 3 whenever it's ready to come out. There's a chance that Last of Us Part 3 could end up being a cross-gen release. Seriously, that's how long these games take to finish, and if The Last of Us Part 3 isn't even like partially through development, could be 5 or 6 years before we see it come out. So, yeah, not great for Last of Us fans, but I am still curious what Naughty Dog is working on, as apparently they are full speed ahead right now on some new game, and that's where a lot of the resources from this Last of Us live service game have kind of been reallocated to. So it's probably going to be a little while before we hear from Naughty Dog. Hopefully, though, they show up with something really good. Next up, let's talk about a delay that's hit a Switch collection seemingly at the last minute, and that's for that Batman Arkham Trilogy. And now, instead of it coming out in a couple of weeks, we're waiting all the way until December 1st. We can see this posted up over on the Batman Arkham account, where they say Arkham Trilogy for Nintendo Switch will now launch on December 1st, 2023. More time is needed to bring players the best possible experience on Nintendo Switch. We apologize to fans who are excited to play this version of the trilogy. Thank you for your patience. So, of the 3 games that are going to be in this trilogy, we have Asylum, City, and Knight. Most of us right now are probably thinking that it's Arkham Knight that is giving them the most issues right now and would cause this delay, and I think that's correct. I mean, Arkham Knight definitely pushed the Xbox One and the PS4 seemingly to the brink. It still looks really good. I mean, you can compare it to Gotham Knights, and people may prefer Arkham Knight, right? But it's definitely a game that didn't have the smoothest launch when it first came out, and I kind of am looking at, I feel like, history repeating itself. So it's better, I think, that they delayed it, obviously, because it could have come out and been crazy looking. I mean, all kinds of frame rate issues, bugs, who knows? I feel like Arkham Asylum and Arkham City are going to work fine, and those are on the 360, and we see pretty good conversions from the Xbox 360 generation up to the Switch. Generally runs at a higher resolution, higher frame rate, all that stuff across the board, but I have a lot of questions about Arkham Knight. I guess the other thing that's interesting to consider is, because we were so close to its release, I almost wonder if that physical copy is going to just kind of leak out there. Like, it may just get delivered to warehouses or stores, and maybe they have to sit there for a while now. But as we see time and time again, Switch games just fall off the back of a truck or walk out the back of a warehouse, and then it gets dumped online. So that could be a very interesting situation we could see unfold, where the Batman Arkham Trilogy game could leak out months before its new release. Now, it won't necessarily matter as much, I guess, because the only game on the cartridge is Arkham Asylum, but who knows what's going on server side. Maybe they can call and deliver some of these files. Hard to say, but definitely keep your eye out for that one. Otherwise, we'll be looking towards the first week of December for its release. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Team17 and what else but more layoffs. And this has just been a really rough week to 10 days in the gaming industry as we are talking about more and more people losing their jobs. But now Team17 seems to really be going through it as this kind of progressed over the course of a couple of days, with Eurogamer having the original report here. This where they say Worms publisher Team17 has announced a company restructure likely to result in significant job losses, saying around 50 roles, the vast majority of Team17's QA department, are at risk as part of a major restructuring process, as the company is now opting to outsource its QA work instead. The company's CEO, Michael Pattison, is also expected to leave. Wow. So I believe the CEO was there for 2 years or something. It hasn't been very long. Now, Team17 did follow up with a response after Eurogamer's report, confirming that they have begun a period of consolidation, and when pressed about the CEO, saying in response to the reports concerning the departure of Michael Pattison from Team17, we can confirm we have amicably parted ways with Michael. Now, to go a bit further, we had another update with this situation, with Team17 confirming the company's CEO has left, and that the sources close to the company are further cuts expected in the studio's programming and marketing departments. So these layoffs seem to be much wider sweeping than originally thought of here. I mean, it really sounds like Team17 is going through it right now. When you see this kind of paring back, it's must not look great on their financial side. And Team17's been around for a while, back to like the early 90s, I believe. So, I mean, we've been seeing many people being laid off in the gaming industry again over the last 10 days, but definitely over the last like month or two. And it extends further than that outside of just corporations in general. Layoffs are happening all across the board. It's a scary time, obviously, and hopefully people who do find themselves losing their job, even out of nowhere in some cases with maybe no severance, are able to get back on their feet and find work elsewhere. But definitely a rough time right now in gaming. And we've already talked about how just the gaming industry is kind of on like rocky foundation. I mean, things are looking kind of sketchy out there. You hear about all these layoffs and it's rough right now. So again, here's hoping everyone affected can get back on their feet. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, how long will the current Switch get support from Nintendo or third parties with new game releases? Let's see, we have 2025, leading candidate there, 45%, then 2026, then 2027, and then the correct answer, 2029. Okay, why do I say that's the correct answer? Because I have a lot of faith in Ubisoft. They will put Just Dance on the Switch until the end of time. Like, I think it'll go beyond this poll. I think we'll be in 2032 and you can buy Just Dance. Seriously, they will run that system into the ground with Just Dance. But I mean, we'll see. They supported the Wii forever with Just Dance, and I feel like they're going to look at that install size for the Switch and be like, you know what? I'm sure we could wring another 1 million units out of this 150 some odd million install size. So I'm counting on you, Ubisoft. Looking forward to Just Dance 2032 on the Switch. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Crazy, who says, thoughts on the Nitro Deck attachment for Switch? I've been looking at this thing and I decided to order it after I read this comment, so it is coming in. I think I just got the standard white attachment for it. I mean, it could be kind of neat. It looks like it makes it just more comfortable to use, and they have some interesting features going for it. So when I get it in, we'll take a look at it in a video, and of course I'll do a teardown on it and stuff, and we'll see exactly how everything's working inside. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Was Nintendo's comments on not only their next-gen device, but also maybe the cross-gen period for the Switch. How long do you think Nintendo, though, will support this current Switch going forward? And then also, what about the situation currently within Sony at Naughty Dog with that Last of Us Factions live service put on ice? What do you think they do with that now? And then also, what about Batman Arkham Trilogy? Were you looking forward to getting it this month? And how do you think Arkham Knight is gonna run on the Switch? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.